All right, welcome back to the program. Professor Uche Uwaleke, Professor of Capital Market and Finance, the Chairman, CIBN Abuja Branch, Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Yes, is with me here, and the former Commissioner of Finance in Imo State. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
I'm looking at my time. We have about 20 minutes, and let's just see how we can jam everything. But, you know, and bring it back to the business, because for me, I always try to relate what all these economic terms that we say for an average Nigerian to understand. Now, the announcement on Wednesday, how did you take the announcement? Was it shocking for you, and what's your perspective of that announcement? Because I've seen different perspectives from people.
Well, as you rightly said in your intro, it came as a surprise to many people that the central bank is this time opting to redesign the Naira. By the way, for the sake of argument, well, in my sense, it's an academic exercise. For me, it doesn't amount to demonetization in the true sense of the word. Because when you demonetize, what you do is you say, this is no longer money. You pull it out. Okay? Remember, money is what the law says it is. So when you demonetize, you remove it from circulation. And usually what happens is that you introduce a new one. No. That is demonetization.
Prof,
this one is redesign.
No, hold on, Prof.
Yes.
You also have demonetization, you have remonetization.
Yeah, when you reintroduce.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
Yes. You see now, Prof.
Yes, you're right.
So I'm right. Yes.
Yes.
You see, so it's about saying this. Yes, it's about let's discontinue this design while we remonetize. So there's a demonetization and a remonetization.
Okay, but you're also talking about the same Naira denominations.
Yes.
You see, in the case of
it can be too.
India,
physical notes.
Well, in the case of India, India pulled out 500 rupee and introduced 2,000. There was no 2,000. They pulled out 500 and 1,000, and then introduced 2,000. So that was a case of demonetization, in my view. But anyway, that's an aside. Well, for me, it's a welcome development, Nancy. I think it's time we did it. It's time we had it. I've always been saying that we need currency reforms one way or the other, and I'm sure this is coming at this time. The CBN governor gave out all the reasons. Of course, it is he who wears the shoe that knows where it pinches. The central bank governor says we have this mandate to implement currency management, to manage currency, but we're having challenges. Section 2 of the CBN Act gives them that power. But according to him, they've been experiencing increasing challenges in currency management, and he reeled out the reasons. He talked about hoarding, he talked about dirty notes in circulation, which of course I'm sure you can attest to. And then, of course, the issue of counterfeiting, that there is evidence, security reports, evidence that show that this thing is on the increase, particularly with respect to higher denominations, 500 and 1,000. No, he mentioned, all of that. And I think those are genuine reasons. A situation where you have over 80% of currency in circulation outside the banking, sector doesn't help monetary policy.
Now, I want you to explain that, because I've also seen a few commentators, it seems they don't understand this part of currency in circulation.
Okay.
And let me take a look at the data if we have that. According to the central bank governor, in fact, this was the piece I wrote that Wednesday I was writing down.
Yeah,
he said 200, yes, he said 2.73 trillion naira out of the 3.2 trillion naira was outside the vault of the central bank.
Yes.
And currency in circulation has more than doubled from about 1.46 trillion naira in 2015, I think, to 2.3 trillion naira as of September 2022.
Yeah.
Can you make our viewers understand what it means? Because some people will say, you are saying currency in circulation, but your central bank, you disseminate this money to banks that gets to us as the end users. It will be normal currency in circulation. So why are you saying it's out of your vault when you're supposed to print money that's supposed to be out of your vault? I don't know if you understand what I've heard commentators say this, and I'm like, it seems they don't understand the concept of even broad money that is it M1 or M2 or whatever.
Okay. Now, let us even restrict ourselves to the physical ones, the paper notes and coins. Okay. Central bank, of course, prints and issues paper notes and coins. Now, when that happens, of course, it enters the economy through various means. People get get paid salaries and or earn income one way or the other. And when they do that, of course, you use money to exchange goods and services. In a situation where you have a huge informal sector, so much of the money that enters the hands of people don't get back to the banks.
Banking system.
Exactly. Now, when we say currency in circulation, CIC, it has two components. One is the money in the vault of the banks. Remember, when banks get deposits, now 32.5% is expected to be with the central bank, okay, by way of cash reserve requirements. Now, the money you have in the bank vault is one. The other component of currency in circulation is the one that is outside, circulating outside, in people's pockets, in people's homes. Those ones are not in the banks. And if you have 3.2 trillion of currency in circulation, and then you have 2.7 circulating outside, it means the central bank, will be hamstrung when it comes to dealing with monetary policy or saying, okay, they want to tackle inflation because they want to control money supply.
It will affect their monetary policy transmission mechanism. It will not be right.
Beautiful. The central bank will not be able to, control money supply, because what is monetary policy is all about controlling money supply, the direction of credit and volume of money in an economy. Now, if the bulk of that money is outside, central bank won't be able. When we say broad money, you mentioned broad money. Broad money is made up of currency in circulation, and I've told you the one in the bank and the one outside, plus your current account, demand deposit.
Checks and
we call these two narrow money, which is M1. Then when you now add savings deposit, you add times deposit, you add foreign currency deposit, you have what we call
broad
M2,
money.
broad money. Of course, we know too, the central bank has introduced M3, another broader type of money. So when within that broad money spectrum, currency in circulation, the one circulating outside is huge. If central bank says, okay, I want to increase monetary policy rates because I want to reduce the ability of banks I want to reduce the money in circulation, it won't work, because they can only control that aspect that is in the bank. And of course, it also makes it difficult for banks to also create money, when you have so much of this money outside the banking system. That is why, Nancy, that you find that since May, when the central bank started tightening monetary policy, moved it from 11.5 to now 15.5, inflation has refused to abate.
Now the
it is still rising because there's a monetary component
that is out of the control of the central bank.
Yes, there's a monetary component that is fueling inflation, which the central bank is trying to target, which they are unable to do. Central bank is unable to do because of this problem. Yes.
Now the question is that with this redesigning of 200, 500, and 1,000, and I should say, the Central Bank of Nigeria is not introducing a new banknote. I need to say that because
that's
seen a lot of stuff going on WhatsApp group. Please tell those people on your WhatsApp group now that it is wrong and it is fake news.
Yes.
There's no 5,000 Naira bank note. I remember it was
2,000.
Yes, or 2,000. I know it was Governor Sanusi that wanted to do it at that point, but it was not done.
Yes.
It's not going to be done now. So please circulate that information. That is not true. Now, with what you're doing now, with what you're going to do, do you think it will give the central bank a hang on inflation?
Yes, to the extent that the aspect of inflation that is as a result of, monetary factors.
Control.
Yes, money supply. The other inflation drivers, or domestic price drivers, such as high cost of energy, high cost of transport, electricity, all these supply side cost push factors, they are not within the ambit of the central bank, and they are more in the domain of the fiscal authorities. But the aspect that the central bank can control is the aspect of monetary policy. So if, as a result of this new measure, if by January 31st, the bulk of this money outside, is able to come inside, of course, the central bank, it will enhance the function of the central bank. Another aspect of it is that it's also likely to reduce the volume of cash that is used to speculate in the parallel market. Because part of the pressure we have in the parallel market today is as a result of speculative attacks on the Naira. you have so much Naira outside, and a lot of people, use it to buy Forex in the parallel market. So when you mop up this and they enter the banking system, okay, it will be difficult to now say you want to use them to buy Forex.
No, but before it enters the banking system,
Yes.
for those that have stacks now, billions
Yes.
and millions
Yes.
of Naira, they will go to their bookies and the BDCs to change.
Yes.
Yesterday, I asked the BDC operator how much the Naira was. I said 6:30 p.m. and he told me 788.
Yes.
And on Wednesday, at the BDC market, it was just, at the time they told me 765, 768, 770, 773.
Oh yes. You should expect, this type of shock now in that market. You should expect this type of confusion now in that market. We've had, if you look back, in history, okay, at the beginning of the program, we are citing countries that have, gone through this, path. You mentioned India. That's correct. India implemented the demonetization in 2016. As a matter of fact, it ran from 8th November to 31st of December. And that brings me to another question. Their own was about a
few weeks.
7 weeks. 7 weeks. Ours is just 6 weeks. You also mentioned cited the European central bank.
Yeah.
That was in 2002. Of course, that was very successful because they had enough time to plan for it and implemented it very well. But there are also other countries. You can talk about Zimbabwe. Yeah. Zimbabwe in 2015, for example, also took out some money and changed to the US dollars. Zimbabwe, Ghana. I also recall Ghana, I think in 1982 or so, pulled out 50 cedi. That was, again, unsuccessful because it was rushed. So when you look at the history of countries that have done this, you find that those that have tended to rush it, have not really, been as successful as those that took time to plan it and then took time to execute it. So the point I was making is that if you take that of India, for example, you will find that as soon as it happened, this sort of reaction, took place. It led to chaos, long queues in the banks, ATMs and so on. We're also likely to experience that here. It also led to distortions in the parallel market. We're also likely to see that here. But of course, over time, these things will normalize. Can you imagine what will happen beyond January? Maybe, medium term, for example. I expect that this pressure, this speculation in the parallel market will have, will go down. So the rates at it is now, if you like, I can place a bet on it. It's likely beyond this. Once the program is over,
how much bet?
I can place a bet on it.
Place a bet, and
yes,
that bet should be from when to when.
Yes, I said medium term.
I don't want to put you on a tight spot, but
yes.
I also want to, I don't know if you've factored in the 2023 elections that will begin in February.
Yes, that's also part of why, it has to come now. Some people have said, why don't you wait until after the elections before you implement it? I think, one of the reasons for even doing it in the first place is to check, this election spending, exactly, vote buying, and so on. They've also mentioned the case of, ransoms payments and so on. So it's good, it's happening before the elections. But again, I don't subscribe to the idea of starting it on the 15th of December. That's what I've just said. December period is characterized by a flurry of activities. Velocity of money is high. We know that.
Because people are saying that it's not good timing too.
Yes, December is not a very good time to start implementing it. If you look at success stories again, they implemented in the first week of January. So I should have expected that it should start first week in January, first, 2nd of January, so that the December period, festive period can come and go. Another thing I also expect to happen, if you look at the time, 6 weeks, I also think it's rather short. But again, I tend to understand that, because if you give Nigerians a long time, a lot of people will wait until the end before they start going. So, which is why I think the central bank will monitor the situation. And if there is need to extend, which I believe there will need to extend, I'm sure an extension will be given. Okay. So the 6 weeks time frame is short. It's also not good to start in December. If it's possible, let this period come and go, and let.
But they've announced it. So
yes.
Can they take back that announcement?
No, they can't take back. Yeah, but they can say, okay, Yes, they can. You see, in the case of the European Union, for example, the European Central Bank, for example, even when they announced it, 3 months before the time, they were already front-loading banks with the currency, with the euro, okay, such that when the thing now started, it became easy to implement.
Who knows if the central bank is doing that already?
No, the central bank
they
gave the impression.
Yes,
no, but they gave the impression that
yes,
the bank should start returning,
yeah,
that they will also start front loading,
yeah,
and that they will.
But it will become official only when President Buhari launches it on December 15th.
On December 15th.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I'm also saying that can also be extended to say December 30th, so that by 1st January or 2nd January, the implementation can take off. But all told, you see, there is no doubt that it will have some cost implications. The cost of printing money, you just mentioned it, somewhere else it was mentioned that what we spend to print money, it's usually the value of what we spend
is higher than the value of the currency.
Of the cost. So, that is, if you like, call it negative seigniorage. I think that's the technical term. Seigniorage is where you have the cost of producing a currency, being the difference between the cost of producing a currency and the value of that currency, face value is called seigniorage. So anytime you have the value being even less than the cost, you have negative seigniorage, which the central bank has been battling with over some time. But that shouldn't stop this kind of policy being implemented. So there will be cost, there will be inconvenience in the short term, no doubt about that. But if you look at the benefits, I think the benefits outweigh the cost. In India, it led to increase in revenue, government revenue, tax revenue. In India, it led to increase in financial inclusion over the longer term.
I was coming to that, especially when you talked about velocity of money.
Yeah.
Velocity of money is the rate at which money exchanges hands. So I was taking a look at how it would, engender financial inclusion vis-a-vis the cashless policy, and what else again is coming to my mind? Cashless policy and the velocity of money and financial inclusion.
Yes.
So how do you see these three, tie up those three, what the relationship will be? Okay.
Now, we hear that the numbers I have, we have about 70 million in terms of the number of people with bank accounts, 70 million. Now, out of that 70 million, about just 2 or 3% of that number, has up to 500,000 naira and above. Those kinds of things. And look at our population. That tells you that we still have, so many people that don't have bank accounts, which was, of course, why the central bank governor was saying that the e-Naira they are also introducing will have provision for people without bank accounts to be able to use. So what this is going to do, if you are asked to, if you must change your money, one of the requirements is that it has to be through, you have to open a bank account. So even those in rural areas, have been advised.
But those people in rural areas, some of them don't have bank branches, and we know that what's been happening lately, banks have really been shrinking their branches because of technology and all of that. You see POSs. Down this hill now, you see how many POS.
Yes, so that's
agent banking and all of that.
Agent banking.
Yeah, so for people that don't have bank branches, what are the alternatives?
Yes.
Will those POS agents or the PSBs, the payment services banks, open accounts for people in rural areres?
I think that's it. Yes, exactly. It's going to be, it will involve, you see, trying to move in 2.7 trillion that is outside the circulating outside. Within that period of time, it's huge. Will involve huge logistics, no doubt. So there will be challenges. So it's for the central bank now to ensure that you have these agents also in rural areas, and that the rural community don't experience difficulty having to change their money. What you're saying is a fact. In my place, for example, in the entire local government, there is no bank. Okay. And you also find that is the situation in many other places. So there should be a way to tackle some of these challenges, including some that I also see from previous studies. When you implement this kind of thing, you're bound to find hoarding. Okay. Central bank says it takes up on the 15th. Don't be surprised that between the 15th to 30th of December, there will be complaints about not having access to the new money. Okay, because those that the channels through which they're supposed to enter enter people's hands. Some unscrupulous people may want to also hoard the new money, and possibly even trading the new money. Somebody can come and tell you, look, I have the new Naira, pay this. Yes, so you see, they will now end up trading. It happened in some other jurisdictions. So we should also learn from these experiences. The other issue also has to do with the rejection. Don't be surprised that before the end of December, people will start rejecting the old notes.
And they are not supposed to reject.
No, it's said illegal tender, but they will start rejecting because of the inconvenience of having to go to change.
How about the other aspect of, okay, so of giving me cash, I do e-money. That's either use e-Naira for those that use, or you send me the money. Because any money in your bank account is secured. That means
okay. So that's also another angle that is going to increase
so just digital transfer, use your USSD code or whatever.
That's also for people that have access
financial inclusion.
Have access to that. But for people that don't have, as I said, there may be hoarding, there may be rejection, and then another issue will be that of shortage of change. Is also another thing that we'll find that has happened in some other jurisdictions. Shortage of change. And that's because ATMs, most ATMs are configured to only dispense 500 Naira and 1,000 Naira notes. So that's why I said it's not good for the thing to start in December, so that people don't experience all those difficulty, change problems. Because 100 Naira notes, 200 Naira notes will not be dispensed by ATM. So you have to change it inside the banking, go to the banking hall. Even though the central bank has said they will operate from Monday to Saturday, but I don't think that's enough. The banks today, you have said they're shortening branches and even right sizing. They may not have enough hands right now to be able to implement that within that 6 weeks period.
I think, Prof, we need to leave it at that. There are so many things to talk about, but I've taken cues from what you also said, and these are some of the questions I think we'll be asking the authorities in at least within this period till December 15 or January 31, and I hope to have their representatives here to speak about this redesign and the challenges as well as the solutions they've put to solve those challenges. So thank you, Prof, for coming.